Welcome to Bill Russo's Short Story Theater. Today's story is a trip back in time and place. The time is the 1950s, and the place is the quirky island of Cape Cod, off the coast of Massachusetts. The title of today's play is Gable Stone and the Boston Monster. To begin our tale, here's Franklin Webster from our studios in the town of Effingham, New Hampshire.
Well, there's 15 towns on Cape Cod, most of them small, with winter populations of only a few thousand people. 15 towns in just one city. That city is Hyannis, the unofficial capital of Cape Cod. It's got sandy beaches, don't you know, clear blue waters, a vibrant fishing industry, and dozens of great restaurants and clubs. The beaten heart of Hyannis is Main Street. It's a long road that runs from one end of town to the other. The middle of Main Street is the commercial district. Features a number of fine restaurants offering everything from seafood to ravioli and meatballs. There's also clothing stores, variety stores, and shops of all descriptions. At the far end of Main Street, there's an area that the tourists never get to see. It's called Leftover Main. Leftover Main. It's that leftover part of the street, which is an area of dusty thrift stores, pawn shops, and seedy bars, and houses of ill repute. It's also the headquarters of Gable Stone Services Rendered. It is said that Gable Stone is the one man to see when you need something done. His office is in a small building next to the downtown tap where the drinks are just a quarter, and so are the girls. They call the girls that hang around the downtown tap quarterbacks. No, not because of their prowess in football, but because a quarter is all it takes to get them on their backs. But today's story is not about the rundown area called Leftover Main. It takes place in the winter of 1957 in the busy downtown district, in Betty and Bob's toy shop. The store is an institution on Cape Cod. For more than 3 decades, the Christmas toys for every boy and every girl in Hyannis have been bought at Betty and Bob's. But really, it should just be called Betty's Toy Shop, because Betty runs it all by herself now, and she's been doing that for 20 years. Ever since the time a traveling circus came to town and Bob ran off with the bearded lady. But that's a story for another time. We're out on the sidewalk now, just outside of Betty and Bob's toy store. Let's go inside. Betty's talking to a bedraggled young lady who's wearing a thin cotton jacket. Looks like it's much more suited for September than midwinter. And the girl's carrying a cheap cardboard suitcase.
Hello, young lady. I'm Betty. I own this store. Can I help you?
I hope so. My name is Annette Foster. My first name is Annette, but everyone calls me Annie. I just got off the train from Boston, and I only have 50 cents left after paying for the train ticket. I need a job.
Well, Annie, right now it looks like you need a warm coat and a hot meal. When was the last time you had something to eat?
It's been a while. Since I ran away from home.
Oh, Annie. If you're a runaway, I'm supposed to call the police.
Yes, Betty, I am a runaway. But I am 18 years old, and I'm pretty sure you're allowed to run away if you're 18. And your stepfather raped you.
Well, the mother instinct in Betty kicked in instantly. From her living quarters in the back of the store, she quickly whipped up a hot meal for Annie, and then got her some warm and clean clothes to wear. After eating, she told Annie to lie down on the couch in her living room and get some rest. The young girl quickly fell asleep, and Annie went back to the store, which had a steady flow of customers right up until closing time at 7 p.m.
Well, the poor kid has gotten about 5 hours sleep. And even though I gave her a meal before her nap, I think she'll be starved when she wakes up. A nice bowl of spaghetti and meatballs with some hot, buttered Italian bread should bring back her strength. The table is all set. I'll see if she's awake. Annie, are you hungry? The food is on the table.
Yes, ma'am. It smells wonderful. I woke up about a minute ago, and the smell of that bread baking in your oven woke up my stomach too.
That's good news. Let's sit down and eat, and afterwards, you can tell me what's going on with you. If you want to. And if you don't want to, that's okay too.
Well, sitting at that kitchen table, sipping fancy British gold imported tea and eating hot scones with jam and butter, Betty and Annie talked until midnight. Yep. The young girl revealed her life story, and it was a sad tale, don't you know? She said that her father had died of a heart attack when she was 11. Luckily, his life insurance paid off the mortgage on the house, but there was no money left over to pay the daily living expenses of food, clothing, the electric bill, and such. Annie's mom was very adept at sewing, so she began earning money by sewing curtains, doll clothing, bags, stuffed toys, and even baby clothes, as well as mending rips in shirts and pants and other clothing items. She did well enough so that there was always plenty of good food in the house, and the electricity was never in danger of being shut off. Well, things went well for a few years until Mr. Barker entered the picture. He came to Boston from Philadelphia, don't you know, where he supposedly had been a successful businessman, but he claimed that his health had gone bad, so he had to retire. He met Annie's mother when he bought some ripped clothing to be repaired. He learned that Annie's mother owned her house outright and made a fairly nice living from her sewing. Well, don't you know, he turned on the charm and began flattering Annie's mom. She was an easy target, having been a lonely widow for 4 years. After a few months, he proposed marriage, and his offer was accepted. He moved into the house and quickly managed to gain control of all of the household money, though he did not work or add any money of his own to the household. He laid about the house all day long listening to the radio and watching television while guzzling down beer like water. In a matter of weeks, he went from the attentive lover to a demanding, crude abuser. As Annie grew into a beautiful young woman, he began to take an improper interest in her. He made lewd and crude suggestions. Well, she ignored him as much as possible, and she didn't tell her mother what Mr. Barker was doing. On the day of her 18th birthday, When her mother was out delivering items that she had sewn, Mr. Barker said he was gonna give Annie a present. He grabbed her, dragged her off to the bedroom, and brutally raped her, leaving her crying and bruised, not only from the rape, but from various slaps and punches to the head and body. He retreated to the living room where he passed out after drinking half a bottle of Seagram's 7. Straight from the bottle, he just poured it down his throat, just like it was Coca-Cola, don't you know? Well, Annie quickly packed up her little cardboard suitcase. She left a note for her mother, and then she walked to the railroad station and took the first train to Cape Cod.
That's my story, Betty. He said he was going to give me a present. But not only did he rape me, he took away something I can never get back. I was a virgin. Like most girls, I was hoping someday that I'd have a husband, and he would be my first. But now that can never happen.
Well, at least you're safe now, here on Cape Cod. You can work in the toy store with me. I have plenty of room here. There's a nice big bedroom upstairs that you can have. You can stay here as long as you like. Probably you'll stay until a polite young gentleman comes along, who will propose marriage. He'll change your last name from Foster to his, and take you away to a beautiful seaside cottage in South Dennis, or maybe Harwich.
Bring me another glass of whiskey. Hurry up, Mrs. Foster. Or I guess I should call you Mrs. Barker, 'cause I married you. But I can't figure out why I did. Where's Annie? Where did that brat of yours go? I demand to know where she is. Where's Annie?
I don't know, Mr. Barker. I told you. I found a note to me in her bedroom. It said, I can't stay here any longer. I'm going to a better place. I love you, Mom. You know that's the truth, Mr. Barker. I showed you the letter.
I think you know where she's hiding. Now you better tell me. Tell me now. Tell me now. Tell me now. There's plenty more where that came from. Tell me now or I'll slap you blue.
I don't know.
She said she wanted to go to a better place. Where would that be?
Well, when her father was alive, we used to go to Hyannis on Cape Cod for weekend trips. Annie loved Cape Cod. She always said, when I grow up, I am going to live on Cape Cod.
Well, that's more like it. I guess I'm going to go to Cape Cod. Give me all the cash you got in the house. Plus, I'm going to go to the bank and take out $1,000 to make sure I have plenty of money in case I have to go to every town on Cape Cod to find her. And I will find her, and I will be bringing her back in chains if I have to.
Oh, Annie. What a Christmas season we're having. The store has never been busier. The locals are coming out in record numbers, and we even have dozens of people driving down all the way from Boston. It's going to be the best Christmas season ever. Well, it's 7 o'clock, Annie. Closing time. Look at the cash register. The drawer is overflowing with money. Would you mind making the deposit?
Sure, I'll count up the money and make out a deposit slip and walk it over to the bank. Hey Betty. It comes out to $650. I'll run it over to the bank and be back soon.
Thanks, Annie. I'll lock up after you leave. Have you got your key with you so that you can get back in?
Yes, I have my keys. I'm going to make a quick stop at the bakery and get a dozen of those scones that we like, so we can have them in the morning.
Sorry, sir, we're closed right now. We close at 7. We'll be open again tomorrow morning at 10.
Well, you can close whatever you want, but when you open in the morning, your little helper is not going to be with you.
Betty. That guy who just came in the store is Mr. Barker. Call the police.
Take your hands off of her. Leave her alone. Stop dragging her.
That's 1107 Penn. Yes, sir, and they have the car stopped at 10th and Grant. You might go by there first. Oh, okay. 323 to 584. 25. Adam Young, 1955. Okay. 23, we're at 10th and Grant waiting for a telephone.
Well, hello Betty. How's the toy business? What brings you here to the police station at this time of night? No trouble at the store, I hope.
Hello, Sergeant Preston. Yes, there is trouble and I need help. You know my assistant Annie. She has been kidnapped by her stepfather. He's an evil man. I think he's going to take her to Boston. She ran away from home because of him.
Okay Betty, we can make out a report and contact the Boston police. But if he's the stepfather and she's a runaway, there's not much the law can do.
Well, she's not a minor child. She's 18 years old. And she ran away from home because he is abusing her.
I'll fill out the report. But the best thing for you to do is go to see Gable Stone of Services Rendered. His office is on Leftover Main.
Yes, I know where it is, and I think you're right. I need the services of Gable Stone. He's the one man to see when you need something done. He brutally raped her, Mr. Stone. That's why she ran away from home. She was an 18-year-old virgin when he attacked her. I think he's taken her back to her mother's house in Boston. Well, it was her mother's house, but when that evil Mr. Barker married her, he took control of all her money, as well as the house. At the very least, he's guilty of rape, and probably a lot more. Will you help me? I'll pay whatever the fee is. I just want that poor girl to be safe.
This is one service I will happily render, and Betty, don't worry about the fee. You say you think that he will take her back to Boston by train?
Yes, Mr. Stone. Annie told me that he doesn't have a car. He lost his license after several drunken driving convictions.
Well, it's just a little bit after 8. If they took the 8 o'clock train out of the Hyannis depot, I can take my car and beat them to Boston and be at Annie's mother's house before they get there. Give me the address and I'll be on the way.
Well, sir, Gable Stone of Services Rendered covered the 91 miles from Hyannis to Boston In just a shade over 1 hour, and by 9:15, he was knocking on the front door of Annie's mother's house. A frail, thin woman answered the door, and Gabe could see that she had once been beautiful, but he also saw fading bruise marks that showed she had recently been beaten, undoubtedly by her husband Grover Barker. Gabe reassured the tired woman that he was going to take care of Barker. If Barker shows up, Gabe's going to take care of him, and the daughter is going to be fine. Well, we're here at your mother's house, Annie. Now get in there and shut up. If you say another word, I'm going to knock your teeth out. Why is it so dark in here? Woman! Old woman! Turn on the light!
I'll turn on the lights. There. The light switch is on. Is that enough light for you, Barker?
Who are you? And what are you doing in my house?
I am Gable Stone of Services Rendered in Cape Cod. And the service that I am going to render tonight is that of an exterminator. I am the exterminator. And I am here in Boston tonight to get rid of a rat.
Well, Mr. Gable Stone, let me show you what I have in my coat pocket. It is a revolver, a Smith & Wesson 357 Magnum, and it is now pointed straight at your head. Put your hands behind your back and turn around, Mr. Stone. Well, sir, Grover Barker was well over 6 feet tall, and probably weighed close to 300 pounds, don't you know? Gabe Stone was less than 5 feet 8 inches tall and only weighed 150 pounds. But each pound was like a stick of dynamite, don't you know? And when Barker pulled out the gun and pointed it at his head, Gabe Stone was about 3 feet away from Barker, don't you know? 3 feet. And before Barker could even manage to squeeze the trigger of his .357 Magnum, Gabe launched a vicious roundhouse karate kick to the face. Well, sir, it was like a rocket. So fast that Barker never even saw it coming. Like an exploding melon, sprays of blood shot up from Barker's face. He dropped to the floor like a sack of potatoes thrown out of a window.
Annie? Mrs. Foster? You can come out of the back rooms now. It is safe. Betty sent me. I am Gable Stone of Services Rendered, Cape Cod. It's okay to come out now. Barker is on the floor and he won't be getting up. You are both safe now. Annie? Are you all right?
He roughed me up a little bit, Mr. Stone. But I'm fine, thanks to you and Betty. But what about Mr. Barker? He's still got the gun.
Annie! Barker will never use a gun again. Why don't you and your mom go in the kitchen and have a cup of coffee? Barker will never be able to hurt either one of you again.
Well, sir, after Annie and her mom left, Gabe checked Barker's pulse. As expected, there was no pulse. Years ago, when Gable Stone learned karate and Tai Chi from Sensei Johan Mirashi, Gabe was taught to never use a roundhouse kick in a fight unless you meant to kill or disable your opponent. Yeah. And Gable Stone had not intended to kill or disable Baca, but once he pulled a .357 Magnum, all bets was off. Yeah. All bets was off.
You've been listening to Short Story Theater, written and directed by Bill Russo. Our shows are available on our home network Spreaker. That's like speaker with an R after the SP, and on all other podcast sites from Apple and Amazon to Zebra and everything in between. Many of our shows are also featured on our YouTube channel. Today's play was written especially for Short Story Theater by Bill Russo, who also played a few of the roles, along with the rest of the members of the Short Story Theater cast. This is Melinda Main speaking. Thanks for listening and come back again real soon. Won't you?